Okay, so let's talk about using option 60 on the WCS server. So at this point, I've kind of cleared out some of the stuff I did before. With this example, we'll focus on VLAN 114. Now I have two different APs on this VLAN. I have a 1240 series AP and a 1040 series AP. So what I'm going to do is I'll configure option 60 to specifically hand out IP addresses to the 1240 series AP. And then we'll see in the logs that the 1240 AP should get the IPs, the 1040 AP should not. So there's a couple step process for this. The first thing that we'll want to do is, get your scope up and running. So I have a VLAN 114 scope already created. It's set to hand out IP addresses between 10.10.114.150 and 250. And the only option I have configured up to this point is just the default gateway of 10.10.114.1. So let's go ahead and configure the option 60 information. So the first step, right-click on your server entry at the top there, and we're going to choose Define Vendor Classes. We're going to add a new one. And usually I name this after the model of AP that I want to use, so I can say 1240 APs. Now we'll click over into the ASCII part on the right side here, and this is where we type that Cisco APC number. So capital C in the Cisco, space, capital AP, space, lowercase c, 1240. And it'll do the binary for us. We click OK and close. Step 2, right-click on your server again and choose Set Predefined Options. In the option class, hit the drop-down box and find the class that you just created. So for us, it's the 1240 APs. And then we're going to have to add an option name, so we'll click on the Add button. Now the name, this would, I guess, reflect the list of controllers we would want to respond to. So I'll just call it controllers. The data type is going to be IP address. Check the box for array, since we can set an array of IPs. And the code is 241. And if you can't remember this, it's actually the decimal version of that F1 that we start off the option 43 hex string with. It always starts F1. F1 in decimal is 241, so that's where it kind of comes from. I'll just leave the description blank. OK. And click OK one last time. Now, if I right-click on the scope options for my scope, choose Configure Options, go to Advanced. For the vendor class, I choose 1240's APs. Now I have an option. Check the box. And here I actually just type the IP address rather than the hex. So if I wanted to discover 10.10.112.10 and 10.10.112.20, pretty easy, hit OK. Now I see the option in my scope, the IP addresses. And now if I go to my switches, on Cat1, I'll go to VLAN 114, give it an IP helper statement, 10.10.2.10.6. Now let's take a look at my APs. So LAP2 is the 1240, LAP3 is the 1040. So we should see it work on LAP2 and not on LAP3. So let's watch the logs here. Looks like LAP2 has gotten its address. It's going to do the translating, and now, perfect. So I see the two IPs that I advertised with option 60. Let's look at LAP3. Just got its IP address. Shortly we'll see it do the translating the DNS entries. And then we should see the absence of learning addresses through option 43. It's even though we used option 60, it still calls it option 43 in the log messages. That's to be expected. Again, we should have seen it by now. So we've pretty well validated, but eventually it'll give up and restart the entire process because it won't have discovered any controllers. So there we can see we, based off of AP model number, advertised a list of IPs to one model and not the other, even though they're in the same DHCP scope. So that would be an example of how DHCP option 60 works.